When you saw Savannah's video today, the verbiage, the majorly up reward, what do you think the tactic was there, strategy behind the scene from the FBI with the Guthrie family?
Yeah, well, I'll first start with the earliest messages, those messages around the time when the ransom notes were coming out and we thought we were dealing with a kidnapping for ransom. Those were very structured by the FBI, working in close conjunction with the family. Then you saw one from Savannah about a week ago or so that was more emotional, more unscripted, asking just for pleas for tips and the help. And that's what you see now is more of that. Unstructured, heart-wrenching, very emotional, and speaking more from the heart. What's happening behind the scenes is that the FBI, and there's investigators with the FBI, there are victim specialists, and then there used to be negotiators, and they're probably still involved, but I don't think that kidnapping for ransom is a legitimate lead anymore. So you have investigators and victim specialists working closely with the family. Investigators are working as hard as they can to identify leads, drum up tips, try to nail down who did this, and then ultimately arrest, prosecute, find Nancy. What victim specialists are doing is they're focusing on the family, and they really do have the best interest of the family at heart here, because this is an incredibly difficult time for the family. Like, they're dealing with unknown grief, right? There's no resolution, no end in sight. It's a really traumatic way to grieve because you just don't feel like you have any answers, and you almost feel helpless. So at this point, those victim specialists are talking with the family, and the family wants to act. They want to do something to help the case. This $1 million family side of the reward is their act to help boost up the number of tips, and not just the number, but the quality of tips as well. That helps the investigation. So it's kind of part of the grieving process for the family, but also they're working in conjunction with investigators and boosting the quality of tips.
We're on day 24, seeing that this is a video going out today. This reward is now at where it's at, and they're pleading for people to come forward. Does that mean that the FBI and the Sheriff's Department are at square one, that they just don't know at all who did this?
Something about the Nancy Guthrie case doesn't add up. For 24 days, investigators have searched for answers. An 84-year-old woman disappears from her own home in the quiet Catalina foothills outside Tucson, Arizona. A doorbell camera goes dark at exactly 1:47 in the morning. 41 minutes later, her pacemaker connection suddenly stops transmitting data. And then there is blood. Blood on the front porch. DNA confirmed to be Nancy Guthrie's. But instead of clear answers, what followed only made the mystery deeper. Ransom notes appeared, not sent to the family, but to television stations. $6 million demanded in Bitcoin. No phone number, no return address. No way to negotiate. And now, something even more shocking has happened. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has publicly pushed back against claims circulating about the case. And the private investigator working with the Guthrie family, Tommaso Cioni, has fired back with a response that could change how this entire investigation is viewed. Because according to multiple former federal investigators, the evidence in this case may be telling a very different story. Tonight, we are breaking down what really happened, what investigators may have missed, and why the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie is becoming one of the most disturbing mysteries in America right now. Stay with me, because this story is about to take a very unexpected turn. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie is not a story of an ordinary missing person. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, Nancy, 84 years old, walked into her home after a quiet family dinner. She had limited mobility, but remained sharp, active, and independent. Her children watched her enter the house, and in their minds, she was safe. A routine evening. A familiar street in the Catalina foothills, just outside Tucson, Arizona, quiet, secluded. A place where neighbors left doors unlocked and felt safe at night. Nothing here was meant to go wrong, but something did. In the early hours of February 1st, a figure appeared on Nancy's front porch. A masked individual, moving methodically, removing the doorbell camera at 1:47 a.m., knowing exactly where to strike, carrying a 25-liter hiking backpack. Every detail, from the gloves to the carefully chosen clothing, suggested preparation. This was not a random act of violence. This was deliberate. Forensic experts later examined the evidence and concluded that whoever did this understood how to avoid leaving trace evidence. They came prepared. They had a plan. But that plan would go sideways almost immediately. By 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker stopped transmitting data. Blood had already been spilled on her front porch, DNA later confirmed to be hers. Forensic pathologists analyzing the pattern of the droplets suggested something violent had occurred in those 41 minutes. Something fast, something unexpected. And the official narrative of the case, a simple kidnapping for ransom, began to crumble. In the days that followed, ransom notes arrived. But they were unusual, sent not to the family, but to television stations demanding $6 million in Bitcoin. No contact, no instructions, no proof of life. Experts quickly questioned the authenticity of a standard kidnapping scenario. If this was truly about ransom, why bypass the family entirely? Why no negotiation channel? Something about this didn't fit the familiar patterns of abduction. And behind the scenes, the FBI and victim specialists were coordinating closely with the Guthrie family, managing public messaging and encouraging tips, carefully balancing hope with strategy. It was during this early phase that private investigator Tommaso Cioni was brought in at the family's request. A man tasked not with speculation, but with asking hard questions when official channels were moving slowly. His presence would soon ignite tension with the Pima County Sheriff's Department, a clash that would unfold publicly in the weeks to come. Nancy Guthrie's life, her family, her home, all of it became a focal point in an unfolding puzzle. A puzzle that defied logic, defied the conventional narratives of abduction, and would soon reveal inconsistencies in the official story. Why was she taken? Was it random, or was she targeted? Who had the knowledge, the patience, and the intent to plan such a precise yet ultimately chaotic operation? And just as investigators were piecing together these questions, something strange started to happen. The story that appeared in the news, in reports, in public statements, no longer matched the evidence at the scene. The blood on the porch, the missing surveillance footage, the inexplicable ransom notes, they were all signaling a reality far darker and more complex than anyone had imagined. But that's when the case began to take a turn that would shock not just the Guthrie family, but every observer watching. As the first light of February 1st dawned over Tucson, the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance had already begun, but it was immediately clear that this case would defy expectations. Law enforcement arrived at the house to a scene that looked ordinary at first glance, yet the details were anything but. Nancy's blood on the front porch told a story of violence. The doorbell camera had been removed with care. The methodical placement of gloves and clothing suggested forethought. And the 25-liter backpack hinted at something larger, something more calculated than a simple burglary. Investigators quickly began to reconstruct the timeline. Nancy's children had dropped her off on January 31st. By 1:47 a.m., the camera went offline. By 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker's transmission ceased. 41 minutes. That's all the time the perpetrator needed to enter her home, confront Nancy, and execute a plan that left few traces, but unmistakable evidence of struggle. The question on everyone's mind, who was capable of such precision and why? The first clues arrived in the form of the ransom notes, but these were unusual. Sent to TMZ and local stations rather than directly to the family, they demanded $6 million in Bitcoin with no instructions for a response. Investigators noted the irregularity. Some experts speculated the notes were an attempt to cover something else entirely, an improvisation after a crime that had gone wrong. Could the notes themselves be a clue to the perpetrator's mindset? Possibly panic, possibly deception, possibly a calculated misdirection. Either way, the communications did not behave like traditional ransom demands. Meanwhile, forensic teams analyzed every fragment of evidence. DNA collected from the blood droplets confirmed Nancy's identity. A glove found 2 miles away matched the one seen on the porch footage. Surveillance footage was scarce, no vehicle departures were recorded, and every lead seemed to end in silence. Yet investigators pressed on. Experts like Tracy Walder and John Miller analyzed the patterns, the precision of the intruder, the choice of equipment, the apparent prior surveillance of the home. Every detail pointed to a crime that was premeditated, targeted, and ultimately improvised when the perpetrator's plan collided with reality. Conflicting reports began to emerge publicly. Some media outlets suggested a burglary gone wrong. Others hinted at organized criminal involvement. Law enforcement clarified that these claims were unverified, but privately, investigators continued to pursue every lead. Each tip, each observation, each fragment of DNA could be the thread that unravels the mystery. And behind the scenes, victim specialists worked tirelessly with the family, balancing grief with strategy, urging the public to provide actionable tips. And then there was Tommaso Cioni, the private investigator brought in by the Guthrie family. Cioni's involvement added another layer to the investigation. While law enforcement concentrated on confirmed evidence, he pursued lines of inquiry outside the immediate official channels. His observations, though later contested by the sheriff's department, raised questions about potential motives, surveillance, and behavioral patterns that might never have surfaced otherwise. Every revelation he made, every lead he highlighted, created both friction and urgency, forcing the public and the authorities to reevaluate assumptions. By mid-February, the investigation had entered a critical phase. Investigators confirmed no ongoing communication with the supposed kidnappers. The FBI relocated its command post from Tucson to Phoenix, signaling a transition from emergency response to long-form investigative work. DNA analysis continued, familial DNA testing was underway, and forensic labs processed gloves and other evidence. Every step was meticulous, deliberate, and time-sensitive. Yet, for all the effort, the case remained unsolved. The investigation revealed something chilling. This was not random. The home was chosen for its vulnerabilities. The perpetrator had studied patterns, prepared equipment, and acted with professional precision. And yet, something had gone catastrophically wrong. The blood on the porch was the evidence. It spoke louder than any statement, louder than any official press release. In those 41 minutes, the plan failed, the crime transformed, and the narrative we were given, ransom, negotiation, hope, was merely a cover. And just when it seemed investigators had mapped the operation, more questions arose. Why did the intruder vanish without a vehicle? Why the media-targeted ransom notes? And most importantly, why Nancy Guthrie? Whoever planned this knew her connections, her life, and the reach of her family's public presence. This was personal, targeted, and it was far from over. The deeper the investigators dug, the more complex the picture became. Every lead generated more questions. And just as the public began to speculate, the investigation itself was evolving in ways that were invisible, deliberate, and strategically critical. The clock was ticking, and in those hours, days, and weeks after Nancy Guthrie vanished, the story of what truly happened on her porch was only beginning to emerge. And this is where the story takes a darker turn. Because the deeper investigators looked, the more confusing things became. Every detail, every shred of evidence, hinted at intentions far beyond what was initially reported. Was this a simple home invasion gone wrong? Or was it something far more deliberate, personal, and terrifying? Experts began to explore multiple possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Tracy Walder, the former FBI agent and CIA officer, emphasized one central point. This was not a random crime. The choice of Nancy Guthrie's home was deliberate. The timing, the methodical removal of the doorbell camera, the meticulous clothing designed to avoid trace evidence, everything pointed to careful planning. Walder suggested two categories of motivation: obsession or retaliation. Obsession, she explained, could stem from someone fixated on Savannah Guthrie herself, using her mother as a proxy, a vulnerable target. Retaliation could indicate a grievance, real or imagined, against Savannah, where harming Nancy was a deliberate message to the daughter. Both scenarios paint a chilling portrait of premeditation. John Miller, former NYPD Deputy Commissioner and former FBI Assistant Director, offered another layer. He analyzed the blood on the porch as a denominator, the evidence that showed the crime changed shape in real time. Whatever plan the masked figure had, it went completely sideways in those 41 minutes. Miller suggested that the ransom notes, the Bitcoin demand, the media-targeted communication were all attempts to salvage a botched operation. The crime, he concluded, was re-engineered after the fact, a cover for something no one could openly admit. Other analysts began weighing alternative theories. Could this have been a professional hit? A criminal seeking leverage or revenge? The 25-liter backpack suggested preparation for a human target, not theft of valuables. The The intruder's knowledge of the home's security systems and the neighborhood's quiet routines indicated prior surveillance. Yet no vehicle was recorded leaving the scene. Did the perpetrator plan an escape on foot, or was someone else waiting, hidden from view? Every answer generated more questions, deeper shadows of uncertainty. Behavioral experts explored the psychology behind targeting a public figure through someone they love. Proxy violence, a known pattern in criminology, occurs when the real target is a public figure, but the vulnerable loved one becomes the immediate victim. This explained why an 84-year-old woman with limited mobility became the focal point of such a precise, high-risk operation. It was not random. It was messaging through fear, trauma, and control. Then there is the matter of the ransom notes. Analysts agreed these were not legitimate ransom notes. No direct communication, no method to pay, no confirmation of life. They were symbolic, a manufactured story meant to distract, to create a narrative the public could digest, while the real events, violence, miscalculation, perhaps even panic, remained hidden. The notes are a forensic clue in themselves, a psychological insight into how the crime was portrayed versus how it occurred. The clash between Tommaso Cioni, the private investigator, and the Pima County Sheriff's Department added yet another dimension. Cioni's insistence that public speculation could generate tips conflicted with law enforcement's need to protect the integrity of the investigation. But both positions reflect real stakes, uncovering Nancy's whereabouts versus ensuring future prosecution. This tension illustrates the complexity of modern investigations, where media scrutiny, public engagement, and operational secrecy constantly collide. And still, questions remain unanswered. Who orchestrated this operation? Did they plan to abduct Nancy specifically, or was she a calculated proxy? Why was the operation disrupted on the porch? Where did the intruder go after the initial confrontation? Was there an accomplice? The evidence paints a picture, but it is incomplete. Each clue, each expert analysis, raises further uncertainty, driving investigators deeper into the labyrinth of this mystery. This case is far from resolved. Every minute detail, blood spatter, missing camera footage, the unexplained silence from the supposed kidnappers forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. Someone targeted Nancy Guthrie. Someone capable, someone meticulous. And yet, the identity, motive, and ultimate plan remain shrouded in mystery. As the investigation continues, one thing is clear: what we have seen publicly is only the surface. Beneath it lies a story of calculated decisions, improvised violence, and a family desperate for answers. And in that darkness, the truth waits, hidden, complex, and potentially explosive. As the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance continues, one thing is undeniable: the story is far from simple. Blood on the porch, missing camera footage, a masked intruder with a backpack. Each detail tells a fragment of a truth we have yet to fully understand. Experts, former FBI and NYPD officials, and private investigators all agree this was not a random act. Someone chose Nancy Guthrie specifically, and the events of that night remain shrouded in mystery. Her family continues to speak out, to plead for answers, and to keep hope alive. The $1 million reward, the public videos, the unanswered questions, they are all part of a desperate effort to bring clarity to a case that has left the nation questioning what really happened. And the clash between law enforcement and private investigators only underscores how complex, layered, and sensitive this investigation truly is. Now, we turn to you, the viewer. What do you think happened that night? Was this a meticulously planned abduction, a violent act gone wrong, or something even more calculated? Could someone close to Savannah Guthrie be the key, or is there a hidden player we haven't yet considered? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this video helped you understand the case, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for ongoing coverage of this and other investigations. Every tip, every theory, and every insight matters. Nancy Guthrie's story is still being written, and your attention could help uncover the truth.